Welcome into SBR's closing line show, college football today with DJ Big Boss, Big Ragoo, Ian Cameron. I am Drew Martin coming to you live each and every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific time. Today, we got a big card, guys. Undefeated matchups going at it, and LSU, Alabama, Penn State, Minnesota, among others. There's some other good games as well. We'll get into it. We got best bets to come. Everybody in the chat box, welcome in OG Wham, Fat Fist, Nut Flush Allen, some good people here in the chat box. Let's go around the horn. We got Big Ragoo at Big Ragoo62 on Twitter down in the state of Florida. Welcome in, buddy.
Welcome in. Welcome, everybody. Exciting day today. A lot of key matchups, a lot of undefeated matchups coming off a 4-0 day yesterday. And I got a little extra pep in my step today because my inside sources are telling me that my alma mater up the road, FSU, is on to a pretty big hire. And it looks like Bob Stoops is the front runner for that job, and it's going to happen. So just keep that under your hat when it happens. So we're excited today about Bob Stoops possibly coming on board.
And the Seminoles will be kicking off in under an hour now. So we'll get Big Ragoo's thoughts here on the 12 noon Eastern kickoff. Boston College versus Florida State. We got his partner in crime, DJ Big Boss in the state of California. Welcome in, buddy.
What's up, Drew Martin? Big Ragoo, the Babano. Excited today for college football, man. Like we were talking about, we get to see that LSU and that Alabama today. Something they've been talking about for a long time. We probably could do a whole show for about an hour on that, but we won't. But yeah, I'm excited today, Drew. I gotta give out a little hip hop. I gotta break them in, Drew. But this one's gonna be a little something for the chat. This is a hip-hop charades right here. I want y'all to know where this one come from. Y'all ready for this? All right, here we go. This is at the beginning of a very special part of hip-hop.
All right.
It's working. It's working. It's working. Hey, if you know hip-hop, you know exactly where that comes from. And I'll check with you in the chat about what y'all think that is right there. But, yeah, good morning, guys. Let's get it going.
Let's get it going. Last, certainly not least, Ian Cameron at Babano on Twitter. Welcome in, man.
Yeah, this Saturday is going to make up for last Saturday. There's no question about it. Last Saturday was kind of not a huge amount of big-time games on the schedule. You got two unbeatens, Penn State, Minnesota today. You've got, two good Big 12 games, Kansas State, Texas, Oklahoma, Iowa State. You've got, and of course, you got the big one. I mean, LSU, Alabama. It's what people are saying is, quote unquote, the game of the year in college football. These two have been on a collision course, it seems, all season with how impressive they've looked. Only one will be left standing after today.
And let's get right into it. Let's not bury the lead. 167, 168, the rotation number 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific kick on CBS. Depending what rankings we're going off of, number 1 versus number 2, LSU at Alabama. Guys, we're seeing some late money here, or not necessarily late money, but some game day money on the over. The under was taking some money from 63.5 down to as low as, I believe, 61.5. Now we're seeing it bump up to 64 in the hook. So some differing opinion here on this total. Sidewise, Alabama now taking some money today, was down to 5.5. Now we're seeing 6.5s pretty much across the board. There are some 6s out there as well. That's Alabama laying at home in Tuscaloosa. Ian Cameron, want to start us off here, man? LSU at Alabama.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we've been waiting for. College football fans have been waiting for it. Bettors have been waiting for it. It's finally here. When you look at these two teams, finally, I think we can say LSU can compete offensively, is at least capable personnel-wise, scheme-wise, of at least competing offensively with Alabama, which they were not able to do last year or 2 years ago or years past, where their offense has just flat out not worked against Alabama's defense. I think LSU's offense will work much better today for a couple of different reasons. One, well, obviously, they've got the right offense now. Joe Burrow's been great. He's in the system that he's comfortable playing in. This RPO read pass option system has been absolutely terrific for him. Joe Brady to team with Steve Ensminger as the dual offensive coordinators for this LSU team. It's worked. I mean, he's come in, he's given them a little bit of a passing deep ball, explosive play dynamic while still mixing in the run, allowing Joe Burrow to use him as a running quarterback and a running threat. You put it all together, and it's worked every single week for LSU offensively. And to me, Alabama's defense has some cracks in it, and they haven't exactly faced a boatload of quality offenses and quality quarterbacks. Like other than maybe South Carolina with Alinsky, maybe with Texas A&M earlier this season against Kellen Mond, could you say that Alabama played some pretty good offenses? Certainly wasn't Duke, certainly wasn't Arkansas, certainly wasn't Ole Miss and some of these other teams that they've played this season. So this is going to be a new challenge for this Alabama defense. However, you could kind of say that about LSU's defense a little bit too. That there's a reason why the series history has had nothing but unders and totals in the 50s or lower, and there's a reason why this total here today is in the 60s, because I think odds makers and most people expect both offenses to perform way better than you normally see in an LSU-Alabama game. I think you can say the same about Alabama's offense. They'll be able to have some success in this game against LSU's defense. Remember, LSU allowed Florida to move the ball pretty good against them. Remember that 42-28 game? Florida moved the ball pretty well against LSU in that game. I know LSU shut down Bo Nix and the Auburn offense recently in a very good defensive performance, but everybody's been shutting down Bo Nix on the road this year. That's been an issue for him all season long, moving the football away from home. I've got a small bet on the over in this game, and I have a small bet on LSU money line. I'm skipping taking the points because the way I see this game is if LSU is going to be in this game, I think they're probably going to find a way to win it outright. And if Alabama has their way, I think they're going to cover. I think that's the way it goes. I don't think the points are going to come into play with the LSU side. I think if they're in this game, they're going to find a way to win. I think it's more likely that Alabama covers than LSU does. So I think LSU can compete, though, in this game. So, again, not even close to a best bet, but you got to have something on the big game. LSU money line at the nice plus price. I'm going to go with that and a small bet over the total as well. Tua's health, too. It's a question mark. I think he'll be able to throw. I don't think throwing is going to be an issue for him. He'll still be able to throw the ball well. It's mobility with his legs. How effective and how able is he going to be with the injury he's been dealing with now for several weeks?
All right, good stuff. Ian, DJ Big Boss, we got the big game, number 1 versus number 2. You interested in getting involved?
Man, we jumping right into the big game right away, huh, Drew? We didn't even get a chance to get it wet or nothing. But, this game right here, we all been waiting for this one on paper, though. But me, I'm not I follow SEC very well, but I'm not a fan. I'm waiting for the day when things change over there and balance out a little bit more. But this is going to be an interesting game right here. Now, if you want to talk X's and O's on this game, it's not really much you can say, until these Lions fight Lions, it's not much you can say about these two. And LSU has been a little more tested than Alabama. And but that could work for them or work against them at this one right here. But it's a nice spot for LSU to grab some points. What I like about LSU is that they are trying to change some things on their team. They offered this game a few things that other people are not coming at them with. They got the nice air raid offense, and they also have a nice defense over there. Now, the defense, DBU, you got to be careful over there. Now, if that DBU is all of it's supposed to be, then it's going to be able to slow that Alabama offense down for sure. Now, size appropriate, they can go buck for buck in the trenches and try to run the ball. So I like the game. I like getting LSU plus points and having some fun watching the game, hoping that Alabama finally catches a tick. Now, one thing I must say in the media perspective is that, everybody's SEC bias right here. I think that if Alabama loses this big game right here, it says a lot for the SEC and where the SEC is going without their juggernaut Alabama after losing to Clemson, then lose to a conference foe. Is this program really on the decline? But, SEC bias people, of course, they're going to say, everything is okay. But at some point, some of these other conferences, teams like Ohio State, if the Pac-12 ever gets it back on their feet, I want to see if we're going to have a playoff system. I want to see it more balanced, around the conferences, though. But that's just my take. Let's go into some more stuff, man.
Yeah, no, DJ Big Brother, I don't think you're alone, man. I'm an SEC guy, and I don't want to see 3 SEC teams in there. So I think a lot of people are with you, man. At Big Ragoo, Betty, down in the state of Florida, talking about the SEC here. What are you thinking number 1 versus number 2? Bama versus LSU.
All right, this isn't your mom and dad's 10-9 game here, okay? Tua changed that dynamic years ago when he came in the national championship game. So, and listen to me, Lou Saban, Nick Saban, he kind of figured things out too. So, the game has definitely changed and to swing towards the offensive side of the ball, and that's why you're seeing the big number here. But I have some concerns for LSU trying to slow Bama down. With the Florida looks, with the Texas looks that they played up against, both teams were able to move the ball up and down the field in that regard. I think Bama, in the history in this, they're like 8-0 the last 8. And last year they walked into Death Valley and shut them out. I know it's not last year's team, big difference here, but on the defensive side, I have to give the lean to Bama. On the other side of the ball with LSU on their defense, they lost their middle linebacker, who was their team leader, their play caller. He's not there today. He's their sack leader, even though he only has 3 sacks. But I think I expect a higher scoring game for sure, not a 10-9 game. But all the indicators in my book are pointing towards Bama. And like Ian said, if Bama wins, Bama covers here. And I'm on the side of Bama here. I think until LSU can take down Bama, give me Bama in this one here, laying the 6 points.
Great breakdown, guys, there of LSU versus Alabama. We'll break down another one here, open it up, and then we got Moneyline Underdogs, best bets coming up. If you're just joining us, please smash the like button. It does help us out. And let us know what you're betting in here in the chat box. Any best bets, throw them out. We got a game here, undefeated versus undefeated in the Big Ten, Penn State versus Minnesota. Looking at SBR odds right now, we're seeing -6.5. Pretty much across the board. That's the Nittany Lions laying on the road, 49 being the total. DJ Big Boss, here in the Big Ten, we got the Nittany Lions, we got the Golden Gophers. A lot of question marks over how good Minnesota actually is, man. That schedule hasn't been too impressive, but heck, you can only beat who's on your schedule, and they beat them all. You interested in getting involved with Penn State versus Minnesota?
Absolutely. On this one, this is my best bet play. I ain't gonna give it now, but this is one of my best bet play. But I'll beat around the bush a little bit. Penn State looks real good. Defense number 10, giving up 9 points a game. Offense number 51, scoring 38 points a game. But this is the toughest offense that Penn State has played. This offense over here in Minnesota, they're putting up 38 points a game. They're holding the ball for 34 minutes a game, 429 yards total. They're doing 225 in the air at 64% completion rate. These guys over here on offense are not playing. The senior Rodney Smith, he has 89 yards on the ground for 7 touchdowns. So this is a high-powered offense that does this on the ground, 204 yards a game, rushing 47 attempts. So that's pretty tough for a team like Penn State, who sometimes get a little thin in the middle right there. And if these Minnesota guys are over here ready to play, it's going to be all in the trenches, and I think they got a shot at beating Penn State outright. But at the same time, everything, all the stale indicators indicate Penn State, quality of schedule, quality quarterback, all those broad structures that you can look at, that are usually a little biased, point to Penn State. But in this one, Minnesota's a really good team, but both these teams are coming off bye weeks. So it's no telling with the health, what they've studied. It's going to be a very interesting game right here.
It is going to be an interesting one, and both teams off of a bye week here, both undefeated. And DJ Big Boss, I would go after this in terms of Minnesota's scheduling. They got Maryland, Rutgers, Nebraska, Illinois, Purdue. That's their Big Ten games they played. You couldn't really chalk it up any easier throughout this conference. Plus the fact they played Georgia Southern and Fresno State. I mean, you could make the argument that Georgia Southern and Fresno State from the Sun Belt and Mountain West are 2 of their toughest opponents that they've played.
Well,
Yeah, go-
I'll say this though, Drew. As a Notre Dame fan, we always get this whole thing about our schedule. Once the schedules are set far in advance. Of course, athletic directors sit down and try to put together the best schedule. They usually have an agenda if they want it to be a light year, a heavy year, or whatever. But some of these teams that they played, like you talk about Nebraska and Purdue, these are teams that at the beginning of the season they had way higher hopes for these teams. Those games would have been way more significant had Nebraska been the team they were supposed to be, had Purdue been the team they were supposed to be, had Maryland been the team they supposed to be. Like you said, it's not their fault that they didn't play to that competition. So you can't look at it like they were out fetching to play weak teams and they ended up here, because that was not the case at all. They tried to go a legit route. If you take that in perspective and you compare their schedule to Penn State, it's the same except Penn State played Michigan, but Michigan wasn't that good. At the time, Michigan's getting a lot better, but at the time they wasn't that good. We don't know what Michigan record is going to reflect. So I find that happens a lot of times with Notre Dame, because we continue to put USC on the schedule, and every time, because USC is down year, people think, oh, that's a weak game right there. But, a few years ago when Pete Carroll was coaching, that would have got us all kinds of rankings and stuff for playing that team. So that's just my take on that, though.
Yeah, the old Bush push years for sure, man. We got Big Ragoo, your partner in crime. What are you thinking here, man? 2 undefeated teams in the Big Ten.
Yeah. And listen, it is what it is. The schedule shakes out how it does. And like DJ says, it comes that way, and that's why we're capping the games like we cap them. You know what I mean? So it's nobody's fault or nobody's, motive to try to, soften the schedule up or toughen the team up. But they play what's in front of them and they put the product on the field. And that's what we do. That's why we cap the games like we do. So Penn State was in a similar situation a few weeks back. Everybody was saying, are they deserving? Are they deserving? Then they crept up to the number 7 spot, and they answered the bell here. And I think Minnesota's has got the same look. But for my money, I think Penn State's a better team here. Just for the fact that they have faced maybe a little tougher schedule. But we know Franklin. I'm not a big fan of him the way he coaches football games. But they do put a good product on the field. And I believe Penn State is the better squad here. I think Minnesota, Fleck is a heck of a coach. I would love him to coach Florida State for that matter. But it is what it is in this regard. And I think Penn State's probably got is going to answer the bell here in this particular game. I'm no knock on Minnesota, what they're doing. They're having a heck of a season. And in his 3rd year, he's turned that program completely on its heels, which is a good thing. So I just think they might be up against it here just a little bit. And for my money, Penn State's the better team. I'm going to lay this 6.5, 7 with Penn State.
Yeah, good big breakdown there, Big Ragoo. I'm with you. I think this number is a little short here on Penn State. I like the Nittany Lions minus 6.5. But Bobano, got to get your take, buddy. What are you thinking here in the Big Ten?
Yeah, we got split opinion, it looks like, on this game, which is good. It's nice to have that every now and then. Everybody's got a different thought on this. I'm with my man to the where is he? He's to the left of me if I look over that way. DJ Big Boss. I'm going Golden Gophering today on Minnesota plus the points. I'm going to stand by my belief all season. I've said so many times, and I've paid the price for it at times, the Iowa game, a couple other times, that Penn State's not as all they're cracked up to be, that they're not as good as people think. And I know Minnesota's got the weak schedule so far that people are concerned about, but they brought PJ Fleck in to coach and win games like this, and he has shown he's capable of winning games like this. I think he'll have his team ready to go. I see nothing but a war, a battle between 2 physical football teams. That's the one thing about Penn State, Well, let's see them get punched in the mouth, because Minnesota plays a very ball-hawking brand of football defensively. They get after the quarterback. They do a pretty good job in terms of their run defense. Let's see if Penn State can answer a physical team like this on the road. Rodney Smith running the football for Minnesota has been great. Tanner Morgan, the quarterback's been solid. They haven't asked him to do too much. He hasn't had to do too much. That would be a concern if this game was in Penn State for me with Tanner Morgan, but I think at home he can relax a little bit. It's going to be the biggest home game Minnesota's had in a very long time. You look at Minnesota's defense, they can match up with Clifford, the quarterback, and those Penn State receivers. They've got one of the better, I think, cornerbacks in the entire country, and Antoine Winfield Jr. That guy is a phenomenal football player, and I think he might be able to make his presence felt. Penn State might win this game. I got 7. It's 6.5 now. I still lean Penn. I'd really like it if you get 7, but even at 6.5, I'd still take the points. I think Minnesota's in this game from start to finish. I think it's at worst a one-possession game, and I think they've got every opportunity to win in outright fashion.
All right. We're split down the middle on this one. Ian, Cameron breaking it down. Guys, we got 2 Big 12 games we want to break down. Then we'll open it up to the rest of the board, get out best bets as well. So the 2 Big 12 games. Iowa State at Oklahoma, seeing the Cyclones catching 14 in the hook at Oklahoma. We also got Kansas State and Texas. Texas -7 at home, 57.5 the total. I don't have too much of an opinion here on Kansas State and Texas, but Iowa State, Oklahoma, I like this underdog here, Ian. I'll come right back at you, man. I think it's just too many points. When you start talking about head coach quarterback combo, a lot of people are going to point towards the Sooners with Lincoln Riley, Jalen Hurts off of a bye, which granted, good coach, good quarterback there. But Matt Campbell and Brock Purdy, I think they're underrated there in Ames. I know they're on the road here, but all 3 of their losses within 1 score, and the losses to Baylor, Oklahoma State, and Iowa. That Iowa game, a lot going on there with weather-wise. Plus, both teams off of a bye and losses as double-digit favorites. It's not only Oklahoma in bounce-back fashion here. That was a tough loss for Iowa State. I look for the Cyclones to make it pretty tough here on Oklahoma. They're going to be putting up some points there in Norman. I like the underdog here, 14 in the hook. How are you feeling, man?
Yeah, I totally agree. I like Iowa State. I'm on them. I got 15. I actually got up to 15 in some spots. That's what I took that number as soon as I saw it, because I doubt it's going to go higher than that. What evidence have we seen where Oklahoma can totally blow out Iowa State in the Matt Campbell era? I have not seen it. Iowa State 3-0 against the spread the last 3 head-to-head meetings against Oklahoma, including a win the last time they were on this field in Norman 2 years ago. The other wins by Oklahoma were each by 10 points, which none of those results would be good enough to cover this number, laying more than 2 touchdowns. Now, I respect the opinion that I've had, that other people have had, that I've talked to about this game this week, that say, well, if Oklahoma gets up big in this game, Iowa State doesn't have the offense and the explosiveness to come from behind a big deficit. And that is true. Brock Purdy and the offense, it's ball control offense, possess the ball, take time off the clock, balanced offense, run the football a lot. And if you're right, if they get behind 17, 21, 24 points in this game, it's trouble for Iowa State against Jalen Hurts and this explosive Oklahoma offense. But I do worry, even though the bye week might help a little bit, I do worry, where's Oklahoma's headspace? That was a punch to the jaw, taking that loss against Kansas State. They didn't expect that coming. I worry about this team getting off the mat against a good team, a well-coached Iowa State team, a physical team. I think that's a concern. And again, they've shown me no evidence they can win against Iowa State the last few years by more than 2 touchdowns. So yes, if they fall behind, it's a concern. And yes, if Oklahoma's up big late, they may punch in another touchdown, because style points might come into play for a team that now is going to need to win out and get some help to get back into the college football playoff. So that comes into the equation. But I remain convinced, matchup-wise, and what we've seen, and especially what we saw from Oklahoma's defense against Kansas State, they reverted back to last year's Civ defense that couldn't make a tackle in the open field, that was getting beat down the field, that was getting bullied in the trenches. Iowa State's got a good O-line, and they could be able to do to Oklahoma's defense what Kansas State was able to do, just bully them, just outnumber them, and just show more toughness in the trenches. I think Iowa State's got the capability of doing that. I know people are saying Oklahoma, if they get up big, it's trouble. I don't even know if Oklahoma does get up big in this game. I think Iowa State hangs in there and stays well within the 2 touchdowns.
All right. DJ Big Boss, man. Any opinion here in the Big 12, both Iowa State, Oklahoma, and Kansas State, Texas?
I was saying both of these games right here. I kind of don't. I haven't really been having a good look in that conference, but I noticed these two these two games right here, they're probably going to beat up on each other. That's what they do in this conference. I bet you if you take the money line wins for the Dogs on both of those games, one of those a cash for sure. That's just what they do over there. Oklahoma, we supposed to be talking about them in playoffs and all that kind of stuff, and we over here talking to them about Iowa State. Now, Iowa State, they could just get big brother bullied right here, but Iowa State been a fight team. They've been fighting back. They have a pretty good defense. They can move the ball on the offense. So I think it's going to be a good game right there. But one thing that kills good defense in college football is mobile quarterbacks. So quarterback gets to running around a little too much back there. It could smell trouble for Iowa State. And I also agree that, if Oklahoma gets up on them, it's not going to be no coming back for Iowa State. So, probably if you look at everything I said overall, the under is probably the best play in that game right there. But that one I'm off. And also the Texas-Kansas State. Here we go, another matchup. Texas is pretty banged up. Got a lot of injured players, all that kind of stuff. They playing at home. They can't. I was taking Texas at home early in the season after they said LSU claimed they put them in the sweat box when it was hot to try to tire them out in the game. And I did notice LSU was cramping up in the third and fourth quarter. But weather's not like that. They don't have those kind of extra incentives to beat this Kansas State team who is very streaky. And the number set a little bit low. It should probably be more of a 10-ish type number. But Texas has not been locked down on offense nor defense. The offense does pretty good, but the defense, they bend and break. So, like I said, I'll go with the Dogs in both those matchups.
All right. Like both the Dogs in the Big 12 big games. And Big Ragoo, any opinion here on the Big 12 games?
Yeah, I got an opinion on both of them, actually. Iowa State, Oklahoma. I think Iowa State doesn't get enough credit for their offense. They're putting up about 35 points a game, and I think they could. Not that they're going to get in a track meet with Oklahoma if that's the way the game dictates, but I don't think you're going to see that anyways. Because if you go back and look at some of the first half numbers on both teams are averaging on defensive side less than 10 points a game. Giving up 10 points a game. So that would be a look. Maybe if you're interested, maybe look at a first half under in this game. And at the same time, I think, with Oklahoma, with a little rest, and their defense has improved over the years. That's been their big Achilles heel. But, they dropped that big game 2 weeks ago. So they're going to be out of the national spotlight picture. But I would still lean Oklahoma here. I think the first half under would be a good play. And then if Oklahoma runs away with it, like Ian was saying, it would be Oklahoma full game for me on the other side of the second half. But K-State, Texas, this is an interesting game. K-State's got two major wins, the Oklahoma game that they took them down, and then they beat their cross-state rival last week in Kansas. Kleiman's doing a heck of a job with that program. Like we said, he had probably the best opportunity taking over the 4 head coaching spots in the Big 12 to, be productive in that program. So, and he's living up to the billing right now. And Texas, on the other hand, they've kind of underachieved in a lot of ways, with a 3-loss season for them. But normally, if I get Herman with 2 weeks or with an extra week to prepare for a game, I like that spot for him there, minus the points. The thing is, Texas, they are the favorite. They are the not ranked team versus the ranked team. They're giving up a touchdown here. I would lean towards Texas and the Herman role. We all know his numbers based. He's not an underdog. He's a favorite, which usually doesn't fare well for him. But with the extra week off, I like Texas laying the points.
All right, good stuff, Big Ragoo. Guys, 11 a.m. Eastern time each and every Saturday throughout college football season. We are here doing the show. Come and join us. Closing line, please smash the like button if you're liking the content. And we got guys asking questions here in the chat box about the 12 o'clock games going off in, under a half an hour now. So, Big Ragoo, do want to get your opinions here on Florida State, Boston College. We were talking about it in the intro. Some other 12 o'clock games here. We got Maryland, Ohio State, a big number, 42.5. That's Ohio State laying in the horseshoe. Also some issues in terms of their best player possibly being out. I believe he is out. We got UMass and Army, a game I'm involved in. I like the over in that one. Market moving against me as low as 59.5 now. That number, I got it at 61.5 towards the over. We got the big one, Penn State, Minnesota. We broke that down. Vandy versus Florida. going off at noon as well. Florida laying a big number here, 26.5 or 27. Purdue Northwestern, Baylor TCU as well. In a Western Kentucky Arkansas matchup, I overall, guys, betting these Conference USA versus SEC games, I know I'm under 50%. I just don't read it well. The discrepancy in talent, seeing Arkansas laying 1 or pick them, I want nothing to do with it. I mean, it's always kind of sexy to pick the Western Kentucky team to go into SEC country and come out with the win. But sometimes you forget about, who the scholarship players are on each team. Not saying they can't do it, just always a tough one for me. Texas Tech, West Virginia seems like a really good one, but Texas Tech is so up and down. I haven't gotten a good read on them. Plus the fact, a little bit of a tough travel spot there to West Virginia. But Big Ragoo, throw it to you, man, in terms of Florida State versus Boston College. You got a good read on the Seminoles. We're seeing BC -1.5 or -2 at home. Always a little tricky. Florida kids going up to the Northeast in the month of November. I tend to pump the brakes on that type of profile. But how do you feel here, Seminoles versus BC?
Well, with the firing of Taggart, there's a lot of question marks in the locker room right now. But usually when it happens on the pro level, teams usually rally around the incoming coach to at least get one good game off to start off with. So my look on this game would be more towards the total, even though the numbers kind of flew up a little bit. 61.5. Boston College has been an over machine lately. They're scoring points, and I like what they got going offensively. And we know Florida State's defense is like Swiss cheese. They're pretty bad. They're having trouble stopping anything thrown at them. So I would lean towards not a side over in that game, but I do have my best bet that's kicking off at 12 o'clock, and I wanted to give that one out if you want me to go ahead and do that now. So
let's go.
It's in the TCU Baylor Bears game. Now, a lot of question marks here with the Baylor team schedule-wise, but they've faced common opponents, and Iowa State was one that Baylor's beat. We talk about them. We talk about Kansas State. They got a quality win against Kansas State. They beat Oklahoma State as an underdog. So, and then TCU's got some issues at quarterback right now. They've got a bunch of quarterbacks. Their starter went down. Their second guy went down. The third string walked off campus Wednesday. Now, Patterson was saying that don't believe what you read on Twitter that the starter is going to play, but I don't know if he's still in or not. But he's got damaged his hand, so I don't know how effective they're going to be putting the ball downfield. And Brewer's been a nice look this year. He's got a couple running backs that, back 4 games in a row, they've rushed for over 100 yards. And I think they can move the ball down the field against them. So if they come at them one way, they'll go the other. So I like Baylor. Baylor's my best bet of the day. I'm going to give that out right here on the show. -2. I bet it Wednesday -2. I think it's ticked up to 2.5, 3 in some spots. So Baylor minus the points is my best bet.
All right. There we go. Locked in on the 12 noon Eastern kick here for our first best bet of the show, Baylor. And actually, it's moved down a little bit, -1.5, Big Ragoo, on SBR odds at a couple shops right here. We got Bookmaker -1.5. That is the low water mark. Also Pinnacle, if anybody's outside the U.S., -1.5. Babano, Ian, what are you thinking for the 12 o'clock slate or any other games you wanted to throw out there, man?
You mentioned Western Kentucky, Arkansas. I actually am involved in that game. It tells you how far Arkansas has fallen this year, that they are at home against Western Kentucky, and Western Kentucky is actually now a 1-point road favorite in some spots in Fayetteville. It tells you just how disastrous it's been for the Razorbacks this year. I'm not involved in the side. I don't want Arkansas. It'll be Western or nothing. But I do like the over in this game at 51 for a lot of reasons. Western Kentucky's defense, we were talking about how good it was early in the season. Well, you're going to be good when you play UAB's offense, Old Dominion's offense, Army's offense. That's who Western Kentucky's defense feasted on. Now they've played Florida Atlantic and Marshall. 2 good quarterbacks, Robeson for Florida Atlantic, Isaiah Green for Marshall, and they were shredded in those 2 games. That Western Kentucky defense, 61 points allowed in the 2 games combined. I think they'll struggle against Arkansas's offense. The grandson of Jerry Jones, yes, the Jerry Jones, Dallas Cowboys owner, John Stephen Jones, will be making his first start at quarterback for Arkansas today. Can't hurt. If you've watched Ben Hicks and Nick Starkel this year throw the ball more to the other team than their own team, you'll know that this can't hurt. This move putting John Stephen Jones in there if you're Chad Morris. Chad Morris knows he's probably going to get fired. I would think so anyway, with the way this season's gone. So he figures, let's change quarterbacks, see what we can do. I think they'll move the ball a little bit. I think Western Kentucky's offense will move the ball a ton because everybody's moved the ball a ton on Arkansas's defense. What are they giving up? 30 points in every game? And there's a nice little storyline involved, interweaved into this game. Ty Storey is the Western Kentucky quarterback. He used to be at Arkansas. They passed him over to bring in Ben Hicks and Nick Starkel. They passed over Ty Storey, who was at Arkansas at the time. And so after he saw Hicks and Starkel come aboard, Ty Storey transfers out of Arkansas and actually ends up at Western Kentucky, where he's now the starting quarterback. So I think he'd like to pay back Chad Morris in Arkansas for saying, you know what, you didn't think I could be your starting quarterback. You went to Ben Hicks. You went to Nick Starkel. Those two guys have stunk for you. I'm going to show you what I'm all about today. Watch Ty Storey end up having a big game for Western Kentucky today. Total's reasonable, 51. You know, Arkansas plays at an above-average tempo. 2 suspect defenses. I like the over there.
All right, liking the over. I like it, especially on the Western Kentucky side. You're right. That offense, the defense has gotten kind of burned there by the better quarterbacks in the Conference USA. Good stuff there, Ian. DJ Big Boss, did you want open mic section? You want to throw anything out there?
Oh, in the open mic session, I want to talk about this Illinois Michigan State game. Now, this one has a funny line, 14 and a hook, and this is in Michigan, but Illinois is 5-4. Michigan State is 4-4. Michigan State is 2-3 in the conference. Illinois is 3-3 in the conference. And this one was the killer right here. Illinois is 6-3 ATS, and Michigan State is 2-6 ATS. Now, it's going to be a lot of defense in this game. That's what Michigan State pride themselves in. So they're going to be playing a lot of defense in this game. And this Illinois team right here, they're not as bad as they may look. The offense is ranked really low, but they still managed to do 163 yards on the ground. Now the defense is pretty good as well. They only let up about 24 points a game, holding the teams to 398 yards. So under 400 on defense is good, but they are bleeding at the running. They're letting loose about 4.2 yards a carry, but they do lock it down a little bit in the passing. They're only giving up 209 yards in the air at a 58% completion rate, and they also have 22 sacks for the season, which is pretty good over there for Illinois. I like Illinois a lot right here. Anybody have any input on that?
The Illini. I'm not involved in that game. I don't know. Big Ragoo, you like that game?
I would lean towards the under. Illinois has surprisingly, Lovie Smith's fighting for his job. Always talking about how he's on the hot seat, but he did reel off 3 wins, of late. So, and they're playing a little bit. I think they're playing a little more inspired than they have in the past. So I would lean towards the under in that game.
Guys, we got Ty Clinton in here saying, anyone like Army? Yeah, absolutely, Ty. I like Army today. I just think anytime you can fade UMass, it's worth a look. We got MVP Sports in the house. What's up, man? Nutflesh Allen, Molly Mall, Purdue or Northwestern, ? Corey saying he likes Illinois as well. Alexander, welcome in. Ian, did you want to throw out any other games here on today's card before we get to best bets?
Oh, shit.
Yeah, we'll throw out a couple rapid fire style. Go up and we'll start with 12 o'clock. What am I looking at? I kind of like Florida State. Big Ragoo mentioned he liked the total, and I don't argue with that. I think it'll be high scoring. I do think Florida State could win that game, though, because the strength of their defense, if they have a strength, it would be against the run. They're a little bit better against the run. Boston College is a run-heavy offense. That might be an edge for Florida State. And again, the coaching change. Willie Taggart gets fired, catches players' attention. Your job is on the line. You're going to be scrutinized now the rest of the season, and with the coaching change. So that sometimes can spark a team. Get their head straightened. Back around and focused. So I think Florida State's worth a look in that game against Boston College. You want a game that I think is a huge underdog that I think can not only cover but maybe pull off an absolute shocker today, and it's a noon game. Let's look to the East Carolina Pirates against SMU, plus 22. I don't know where SMU gets back up off the mat after the Memphis game. They've had some tough losses lately. The last couple of games, that loss was tough. The Memphis game was a huge spectacle on Saturday Night Football on ABC. Very difficult for SMU. Bubble burst kind of for them. Now you got to cover 22 points against East Carolina. Let's not forget East Carolina took Cincinnati down to the wire. in their last game. A pretty good Cincinnati team. They could have won that game. The offense under Mike Houston, the head coach, who I think was a good hire, they were starting to get going. I think that's a mountain of a number. And I've seen Sonny Dykes teams in years past. They lose a big game and they're flat as a pancake the following week. I'm worried about this spot for SMU. I think East Carolina plus 22 is worth a look. And if they win that game, it's a huge money line price. This could be a total flat as a pancake spot for SMU. So I don't think it's crazy to even sprinkle a little on East Carolina money line in that game. I lean Kansas State against Texas, but not really all that strong because, again, Big Ragoo mentioned Tom Herman off a bye week is pretty strong. I think the matchup's good for Kansas State. They like to run the ball. Texas struggles to stop the run. But the extra bye week, and Texas is getting healthier. If you look at Texas injury report, they're getting a lot of guys on both sides of the ball back for this game. So I lean a little to Kansas State, but nothing overly strong there. I mentioned Iowa State. I mentioned LSU money line in the over. I like Charlotte in the over against UTEP. I think Charlotte's going to wax UTEP. UTEP's horrible. Charlotte's playing really good football all of a sudden, beating some good teams as well. Nice win for them against Middle Tennessee last week. They're playing really good. I think they can win by 2 touchdowns or more against UTEP. And Charlotte's been cashing one over after another for the most part, and I like that over. And also like Stanford, Colorado over the total, 56 in this game. We don't think of Stanford as an over team, but this year they are. They're 5-2 to the over their last 7. 3-0 to the over on the road. They have KJ Costello back, healthy again. He had a great game against Arizona, 41 points in that game. Colorado's defense, how bad has Colorado's defense been? They've given up 30 points in every single game this season, Colorado. They'll give up at least 30. I know Stanford, we think of them as a plodding offense. With Costello back, they can throw it around a bit and put up points, and anybody can put up points against Colorado. On the flip side, it's not the same Stanford defense this year. They've really had their tough times. Stanford's defense has allowed 28-plus points in 5 of 7 games, 28-plus points in every road game this season. Again, this total should be in the 60s usually with Colorado. It's only 56, I think, because you see the name Stanford involved. You think plotting offense, good defense. Well, it's a bit more explosive offense, and it's not the same Stanford defense. So I think there's value in that number, 56 over the total in Boulder. And it's supposed to be 70 degrees Fahrenheit in Boulder today in sunshine. So it's a warm November day for Boulder, Colorado standards. So weather should be good, and I expect points in that one.
All right, DJ Big Boss, did you want to throw out any other games here before we get to best bets, man?
I'm ready for my best bet, Drew. I'm going to go ahead and put that out there because it's in the early games right here. And I already talked about it earlier in this Penn State-Minnesota game. Quite a few indicators indicate the under is live in this game. For one, you got the possession of Minnesota. For two, you got 2 running teams that are going to run the ball a lot. It's going to be over about 80 touches on the run side of the game. And 2 great defense, number 10 defense, number 13 defense going at it. And also it's going to be pretty chilly out there in Minnesota.
Okay, so Penn State, Minnesota under 49.5, correct?
Absolutely.
All right, so that's 2 best bets in here with Big Ragoo on Baylor -1.5, DJ Big Boss on Penn State, Minnesota under 49.5. Both of those games going off here in under 15 minutes, guys. So not too much time to lock those in. Big Ragoo, did you want to throw out any other games here on today's slate?
Yeah, I'm going to throw out a possible money line straight up dog winner that I talked about earlier in the week. I'm going to go contrarian here because I think we got a little reverse line movement on this one because the majority of bets are coming on the side I like, but the total keeps going up. And talk about the Miami-Louisville game. Now, history on this game, especially Louisville playing teams in the state of Florida. You know, a lot of the big schools get, Florida State, they get the bigger recruits, and then and a lot of these kids, believe it or not, Kentucky is a hotbed for recruiting kids out of Florida. They go to Louisville or they go up to the other side up in Big Blue. But anyways, so when these teams meet up later on in down the road at some point in time, a lot of these kids have their chip on their shoulder and they meet up, especially I could preach for Florida State. But if you look back in history in this particular matchup, Louisville's had some pretty good success, and they've got a pair of wide receivers that are lighting up the scoreboard right now. And Satterfield's done a nice job with his team, and they're playing pretty good football. Offense, they got a winning record. They've scoring some points. They play solid defense, and they're not a team to take it lightly here. And Miami's got to go into a bye next week, so they might be thinking ahead of taking that extra week off a little bit. So I like to look at Louisville coming down to Miami and getting the 7 points and maybe sprinkle a little bit on the money line. That's going to be my dog play of the day.
I agree with that. I like it.
Yeah, going down to Miami Gardens and at least covering a spread. So big.
There's no way I would lay 7 with Miami right now. No way.
Yeah.
Good stuff, Big Ragoo. Nice, man. And I guess, Ian, we got to finish off the best bets here, man. You want to throw out your best bet?
Yeah, I will. One more that's not a best bet that I forgot to mention. I like Wake as well against Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech left it all out on the field last week against Notre Dame, lost 21-20, last second touchdown for Notre Dame. They didn't really play all that great. It was just Notre Dame was terrible in that game. They were flat after the Michigan loss. Virginia Tech took advantage of that. Their offense didn't move the ball much, Virginia Tech. There was a big fumble return touchdown for Virginia Tech late in that first half last week against Notre Dame. Notre Dame was about to make it 21-7. They fumbled near the goal line. Virginia Tech returned it, and it tied the game. Totally swung the game. And I think without that play, there's a chance maybe Virginia Tech doesn't cover that game, believe it or not, as 17.5-point road underdog. So I think Virginia Tech's getting too much credit for hanging tough with Notre Dame. It was a bad spot for Notre Dame. Now they're playing a really good Wake offense. Wake just destroyed NC State last week. 44-10? Jamie Newman is back after missing a couple games at quarterback. And Virginia Tech's offense, they don't have the offense to play catch-up. If they fall behind, they're in trouble in this game. I think for Wake Forest, cheap number. You can lay the money line even if you want. If you don't want to lay 2.5, the money line's cheap enough. I think Wake beats Virginia Tech there in that ACC game. For best bet, I'm thinking North Texas, Louisiana Tech is the game. I'm debating right now side or total because I like Louisiana Tech -5. I think they're better than North Texas. They've only had one loss this year. That was to Texas. This Louisiana Tech team, Jamar Smith, great quarterback. But I respect North Texas's offense and Mason Fine, the way he's played, that I'm actually going to go with the over in this game as my best bet. It's a high number. It's way up there, 71, I believe, 71.5, 72 we've got to go with right now. 72, the widely available number in this one. But I think we get 35. I think we get something like 42-35, 38-35 in this game. Louisiana Tech's offense has scored 40s and 50s pretty much every week lately. North Texas is giving up 40s and 50s in a lot of weeks lately. That Louisiana Tech offense more than capable of scoring into the 40s and maybe even into the 50s. You would only need, 24, 28 points from North Texas, and I think they can get you there with Mason Fine. They play extremely fast with Seth Luttrell's offense, one of the faster paced teams in the country. So I was debating, do I go with the side or the total in this game? I'm going to go with the total. North Texas, Louisiana Tech over 72 for best bet. We've done good with these Conference USA overs lately.
All right, CUSA over the total in that conference. Louisiana Tech, North Texas over 72. Highest scoring conference, I believe, Ian. And also an interesting stat, I believe every head coach was a former offensive coordinator in Conference USA. So that speaks a lot to what's going on there offensively in that conference. And speaking of Conference USA, I'll finish it off here on best bets. UAB in Southern Miss got an interesting handicap in terms of Southern Miss coming off of a bye at home. UAB back-to-back road games in the smaller conferences. Always worried about that, and the fact that UAB quarterback situation a little banged up there. So I'm going to lay the 7 with Southern Miss as my best bet in the later action games. Guys, short, sweet, to the point. We got a couple minutes here before kickoff. Anybody else want to throw anything out before we shut this down?
I'll throw out my money line dog. I kind of got two. Notre Dame is on the upset alert for the rest of the season. I don't know which other team is going to get them, but one is going to get them. Maybe it'll be Stanford at the end for sure, but I got them on the upset alert, so I like Duke. But also this San Jose State team been traveling well, opposed to everything that I thought about them traveling different places. They went all the way over, played Army and won. They went down south and won, and now they get to go over here to the island. And I think they have opportunity at winning straight up on this one as well.
Okay, that's the Degenerate Special. Last game on the board, DJ Big Boss, 11 p.m. Eastern kick here. San Jose State at Hawaii. We're seeing the Rainbow Warriors -7.5 or -8 on the island. Total of 77. And you're right. San Jose State, I believe 2 weeks ago, played Army. Played them pretty competitively, then came home just last week, lost a tough one to Boise State, now having to go all the way to Army. So it's a heck of a travel situation there for San Jose State. But you think they're going to the island and staying within the number of 8?
Hey, they surprised me in every other aspect when they traveled, and it wouldn't surprise me right here if they came home with the victory as well.
Plus,
Yeah,
Hawaii's
no,
defense
I can see that.
stinks.
Yeah, and
that
Big
too.
Ragoo, I mean, looking at this total of 77, I wanted to bet the over, but that's a pretty crazy total there, man.
It still might get there, in my opinion. By the way, I saw some stat: Hawaii 4-16 or 4-17 against the spread last 21 as a home favorite.
Real
That's
bad at
really,
home.
really, really bad laying points at home. So for me, it's Sparty and the over in this game if I'm betting it.
All right, great stuff, guys. And over 350 people watching right now, guys. We really appreciate it. 11 a.m. Eastern time each and every Saturday. Ian, DJ Big Boss, and Big Ragoo will hold it down next Saturday. I will be out of town, but the following Saturday, I'll be back. So, guys, best of luck next Saturday. Best of luck with your bets today, guys. Thanks for watching. Please smash the like button on your way out. For Ian, Cameron, DJ Big Boss, Big Ragoo, I am Drew Martin. Best of luck with your bets, guys.
Cash
Good
up
luck,
tickets, everybody.
Cash them.